I have long been inspired by the Christian martyr Polycarp, and I was quite pleased to discover that an advanced children's biography had been released about him a couple years ago. I actually didn't know much about Polycarp, but I was simply inspired by his stirring response to the Roman proconsul Statius Quadratus when Polycarp was commanded to deny Christ. 86 years have I served him, he said, and he has done me no wrong. How then can I blaspheme my king who saved me? Unquote. I had read this quote first many years ago, and I've held an interest in Polycarp ever since. This biography is only about 130 pages long, but I was impressed that the author, David Luckman, managed to write a good book that long about a man of whom, as I thought, little was known other than the account of his martyrdom. Thankfully, I was wrong. In order to write this encouraging volume, Luckman has drawn from early documents and filled in the gaps with good theology and a believable plotline, with few additions to the real story other than dialogue. And even the dialogue was drawn from the truth of Polycarp's life. I will not go into the entire storyline in this video, but if you want to read the plot, which I highly recommend as it is stirring and encouraging, you can follow the link in the description of this video, which will take you to my blog post where the complete book review is written. There were several things about this book that greatly stirred me. The first was the constant prayer. Polycarp and his brothers in Christ would spend the whole day or night in prayer. Furthermore, when they prayed, even Polycarp would pray on his knees. I am seriously convicted by this. I cannot pray on my knees 2 minutes, let alone a whole day, and Polycarp was 86 years old. Whether this particular tidbit of the book about praying on one's knees was true or not, I do know that praying on the knees used to be far more common than it is now, and I have wondered if this is a problem. Should we be returning to the custom of praying on our knees? Are we not honoring our king enough by not doing so? In the book of Acts, we see Paul praying on his knees despite his age and broken body. The epistles speak more than once of how our knees will bow before Jesus and the Father, such as in Philippians 2:10 and Ephesians 3:14. And we even see Jesus kneeling before the Father in prayer during his time on earth in Luke 22:41. If it is Jesus' way, shouldn't it be my way? I know that oftentimes the posture of our hearts will follow the actions of our bodies. So I have begun to practice kneeling for brief moments of prayer when it's a time I especially need to be humble before the Lord. And I am hoping to lengthen the time kneeling as time passes. I am not trying to accuse the modern church. I just wonder if we're missing out on something the Lord desires from us as he is our King. Oh, come. Let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. Psalm 95:6. Another thing that really stood out to me about this book has two angles. First, the Apostle Paul says in the book of Acts that, I know after my departure, fierce wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. And from among your own selves will arise men speaking twisted things to draw away the disciples after them. Unquote. From this biography, we see that Polycarp fearlessly and ferociously defended the church against the wolves, both without and especially within. He called out the heresies of these wolves and refused to fellowship with or even be near them. But the second angle of this is that if a church member's error was a secondary issue, something that did not affect the core truths of the gospel, Polycarp would gently try to correct them. But he would continue to push for the greatest unity and fellowship with them possible. Through it all, Polycarp sought to uphold the truth of the gospel while pursuing believers with his whole heart. He loved the Lord, and he loved his saints. If I could have only the half the wisdom and obedience that Polycarp had, I would be a rich woman indeed. Thirdly, I was stirred up in my heart by Polycarp's courageous testimony before the Roman proconsul and his unwavering courage at the threat of wild beasts and flames. I hope if it ever comes to that in our country, and I am compelled to stand before unbelievers, that God will give me the words to speak and help me to not deny him, just as he helped Polycarp. There are other reasons I like this book. I appreciated the continual weaving in of good doctrine, particularly doctrines that were under attack in the church in that day. The author did a really good job of taking you back to that time. Altogether, I felt like I learned a lot about the early church from this book, and I would gladly read it again. In fact, I already did. I highly recommend this book as a way to not only learn about an early church father, but to be stirred up in your faith as well. It is obvious that the author is a Christian, and there are so many little gospel tidbits in the book that wake up your heart to pursue your king more and more in new ways. I should say one more thing. This book was written, I believe, for 9 to 14-year-olds, and I would say that I would agree with that for this book. It would be too difficult a reading level for a child younger than that, although I do feel that a child younger than that may be mature enough to handle it being read to them, depending on the child. Just be warned, there is mention of Christians being thrown to the wild beasts, vicious mobs, and burning at the stake, as well as some blood and beating, but none of these are minutely described. I loved this book. And for a children's biography, my copy has a lot of underlining in it. There's so much good theology in this book. I highly recommend it, and I hope you will be blessed by it as I was. There's a link to buy this book in this video, but I should mention that as an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases.